All right, so this is through Lamar University. The purpose of this video, it's a field experience activity, and it's provide an opportunity for growth in communicating with faculty and staff regarding assessment of professional development. So basically figure out what's going well with professional development, what isn't, and its impact on teacher professional growth, classroom instruction, and student achievement. So just to give you a little bit of information about me, I'm Dr. Aaron Willis. If we could go around the horn, everybody introduce themselves, that'd be awesome.
I'm Damian Smith, APC teacher, head strength coach. I don't know if I have to say that, but.
I'm Caitlin Steckbeck. I teach theater and run the auditorium here at Avon.
Jared Johnson, Algebra 2 honors and finite math.
Awesome. So Mr. Johnson, Mr. Smith, and Ms. Steckbeck, thank you so much for being a part of this. So some norms and expectations that we're going to have for this is that we're going to keep everything professional and constructive as best we can. We're going to try to stay on topic as much as possible, and we're going to be positive and try to offer solutions to the perceived deficits that we have in our professional development opportunities and our activities. So we know that Avon High School serves grades 9 through 12 in Avon, Indiana, and we have about 3,400 students. I think approximately like 3,358 students. So as we know, we're going to go through, I'm going to ask some questions pertaining to professional development. And I want you all to answer as truthful as possible, because there's some things that I probably don't know because I've only been here for a year and a half at this point. So thinking back to your experience with professional development, what is the most powerful or impactful professional development activity you have experienced? I mean, it can be here or it can be anywhere else that you've been.
I'll go ahead and go. When I was at Whiteland, probably 7-8 years ago, I don't know. One thing I really enjoyed was that they had ordered us all books, and I think it was there was one that was like a Daniel Pink book. I don't really recall the name of the book, but we just basically read, they gave us a reading assignment, and then once a month we'd come in and we'd kind of just talk about it as a staff and kind of reflect and collaborate on, the information that was provided. I found that very helpful. I found that, that collaboration with teachers and being able to kind of just share, our teaching philosophies and, backgrounds and, ways that we, can help improve ourselves as teachers and professionals, but also help our students. And, I just found it very beneficial. I think sometimes when we, kind of do things kind of similar to what we're doing now, or in the past, even at Whiteland, when I was there, we did things differently year in and year out. But I don't know. For me, professional development is about, asking questions. And, if I've taken obviously my administrative license, but just asking questions and getting information from your staff and your teachers that are in the classroom, so sorry for taking so long, but that's kind of I hope I answered the question.
I would just say I really appreciate kind of like the hard facts data sometimes. Sometimes professional development, I call it bad therapy, where we all sit around and talk about like all the bad things and things that aren't working. And then we have little to no solutions and we just go back to work. So I appreciate where it's like the data of like both, the demographics of a school, our testing numbers, because you just can't really fluff that. You can't really, have a feelings conversation. But thinking back to, I taught at Wayne for 2 years, and that was just middle school English. And then I went to Franklin Central for a year that did tons of like data studies. And I'll never forget that I saw they made like a graph of like all the numbers of different schools. And Wayne was like, I-STEP passing 50%, whatever test, 40%, 60. I mean, they're in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. Yet they were ranked number 2 in graduation rate, which is like the only thing a school's in charge of. And so it just really made me think of like how easy it is to manipulate the data to push a kid through. And clearly they don't know English and math, And so it's good to see like the hard facts sometimes of what we're actually doing and what's working, whether or not it's us or the kids. So I'll throw that out there as something that sticks out in my brain.
Okay, I think for me, the best professional development is just something that's applicable to what I do. Sometimes they try to do the cookie cutter approach where, being in the math department, it just seems like there's never really something we can do, I guess. But I would say the best thing I ever did was kind of on my own. I went and studied John Hattie and the effect size of different ways to teach, and strategies. And I used it in both football and the classroom, but how I was teaching things. And I think with professional development, you got to assume your teachers want to be the best they can be. And sometimes I think it can have the impact of, well, you aren't, capable. So here's your cookie cutter professional development. But I think data is great, like Caitlin said, but don't just throw out data and not do anything with it. Have data, but give us a roadmap to what we're going to do about that data. But I would say overall, it would be kind of on my own with looking at Hattie's effect size. And then also anytime you're in, a content specific professional development, I think that's the best you can do.
I guess I would say for me, this is my 3rd corporation. I would say probably my first 3 years, I'll be honest, I cannot remember a single professional development that was truly that powerful or impactful. I think the one that was the most, I guess the one that comes to mind that I remember was like, this is a big deal which no one was happy about. Because in South Bend schools, a lot of the schools were like C, D, and F schools. So we had to come up with a lesson plan. And just trying to come up with a lesson, like what is the lesson plan template, and going through and figuring out, is this important? Is this important? And just, kind of going through and realizing like, wow, there are a lot of teachers that don't know how to do a lesson plan or actually write one out from start to finish, just because like, it's weird how we as like educators, when we go through, school, if you do like the second, actually, if you're an undergrad and you do education, you have to go through the template, do the understanding by design template and things like that. And then all of a sudden you get to the classroom, you're like, oh, I literally just write down a few sentences in my agenda or on the wall. And it's like, okay, that's my lesson. And so actually being intentional and knowing what you're going to do from start to finish was really interesting. But now when I was in Goshen, I would say of the professional developments there were really impactful. I think one that was probably the most impactful for me. I mean, I like looking at testing data, especially when it comes to demographics, and seeing that like the demographic change from what it used to be, which was like 80% white and 20% Hispanic in like 2010, to where in 2020 it was like 40% white and 60% Hispanic, and seeing that our graduation rate was 90%. So I mean, I think that was a big deal, and really impactful. I mean, here for me, it's more so going to professional development about safety and all those other things that administrators have to do, and just learning the ins and outs of what do you actually have to do to help and support kids to make sure that they're all safe. What is something that is a red flag? What's something that like we say, hey, like we'll get them supports, or is there things we have to get SROs involved in? So I think those are always impactful because it's always about helping the kids. I mean, if I'm not seeing or hearing things that are truly helping the kids, it's very hard for me to keep focus and or really keep it in my duffel bag of things that I need to have for my career. And that kind of moves us into what we really are going to be talking about, and more so about for what's going on with our professional development. So how effective are our professional development opportunities?
I have enjoyed so far some things that we've added just to the APC classroom with we started a form check where we're doing more individual checks with kids. So I guess to kind of get to the point, I feel like I've definitely learned some stuff, but I also feel like a lot of it's just too much. I don't think, we need to meet every week. I just, don't water it down too much. I mean, we've had 2 professional development meetings in the last, on Tuesday and Wednesday. And I get confused, I just feel like there's a lot of information and, a lot's being thrown at us. And, you can't pack 10 pounds of crap in a 5-pound bag, and sorry for the expression, but I just think it's too much sometimes, and let's find something and stick to it. And also, like, I feel like maybe it's changed quite a bit in the last year or two, and shifted focuses. So I think it has some good qualities, but I also think maybe cutting back a little bit, would be beneficial.
I would say, well, first off, this is like a nationwide problem. No public school is really offering content area support for performing arts. I mean, we are 5 different entities put together in one department, and it just is what it is. But I think what Avon does a really great job of is they're very supportive of us going out. And like when we go to conferences, when we go do things, or a lot of the band guys, like they judge and go to different whatever's, that we always get the time off. It's always approved. They, I have to pay for it from my ECA account, but they allow me to do that. Like they get that they're not really offering stuff for us to be better in our content area. So they're fine when we go out, like they actually like support it and celebrate it and talk about it and stuff. But in regards to, I think what kind of Damien's mentioning about all of these meetings, honestly, performing arts, like our PLCs have pretty much just become like organizational meetings. Like we might talk here and there about like a small classroom thing that worked really well, but what symphony orchestra does is not what advanced acting does, so we kind of have like a department meeting about the calendar and the auditorium and like needs and, which oddly enough, though, is supportive of our department. Like we are so interdependent on space that sometimes just meeting to talk about a calendar is like what we need the most to then go out and do what we're good at. So I think on a PLC template, we kind of suck, but when the 5 band guys get to finally sit with no kids and no distraction and figure out logistics, not necessarily curriculum, that makes the curriculum easier, if that makes sense. Sorry, I hit leave instead of mute.
I would say this year, really it's been consistent. I would say that's a plus. We know when it is, what it is. And it's allowed us to be in our department, which is nice. Sometimes it can get redundant, but I think the annoyance of it is we've been doing that for years. Like this is my 10th year here, and we've been doing that. And then they stick this form on us that just seems like busy work. It just seems like, and I know it's an accountability piece and they have, an admin here has admin above them. But I feel like sometimes as a CT leader, I'm wasting my time making sure everything on the form's filled out and, everything is done how it's supposed to, that I sometimes lose, 10 minutes out of that hour, just making sure as the leader that things are going well for my accountability piece. And like I said, we've been doing that all along. So it's been good. It's held, kind of, put us right, make sure we're going in the right direction. Another thing is with the group A and the group B, that can be a little bit frustrating because my group B, we teach different things. So sometimes it's hard to include, for instance, Brad, who doesn't teach finite A at all, and two of us do. And then next semester, I won't be teaching finite B, so I'll be kind of the outcast. So I know it's not going to fit everything, and it's about equality and making sure, well, why do they not have a group B and I do? But I think it's better. I would say it's better that it allows us time, but just the accountability piece of the form, maybe it could be shortened or something, but that's my take.
Also, really quick, can I figure out how long has everybody been in Avon?
This is my 7th year.
This is my 6th year in Avon, but my 9th year of teaching. So
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Mr. Johnson, you said you've been in Avon for 10 years, right?
10 years.
Okay, so since you've been here, I'm gonna ask this follow-up question. How many different initiatives have y'all been a part of, and or have they put on you since you've been here?
I would say, my first year was the Rise, big, Rise. And I was like, what have I gotten myself into as my first year teaching? It's like, you got to pick a class of students to track and I don't even know them. And then they've got to perform well. And you're asking me to pick it before I've met them. And the total initiatives, goodness, it just feels like every year it's a new one. And it really does.
I think for me, the word initiative is more, is it like a little tool or is it like we expect your day-to-day instruction to change? I think when it comes to like Damien mentioned, we did a book study here years ago, or, that I kind of just take that as like a way to learn something new, make of it as you will. Compared to when I worked at Wayne, it was like a new initiative every other month. It was bad. It was horrible. And it's like, how do we have this much money to pay this many people to come in? But I don't, at least in theater, I'm sure it can be quite different in English and math and performing arts. There has never been a big push of like, you're doing this. I think the reading one we did last year, like really enhancing reading, that threw the music people for a loop because they didn't kind of square peg round hole for them, but it was already something I was doing in class. So yeah, I wouldn't say total overhaul initiatives, but here and there kind of like pockets of how we're doing professional development. I would say like it's changed every year, which I don't know if it's good or bad. I don't know if I would want to sit through the same information for 6 years, but it's also that flip side of like, what are we doing this year? Like, oh, what's the thing? So it just kind of makes me wonder, we pushed so much for reading, but like, where's the follow-up this year on that piece?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm same page. Just it's been different every year. I don't really remember what we did my first couple of years. I know it was pretty low key. We were able to meet as departments, which I found very beneficial. Actually meeting with your team, meeting with the people that that you work with or in your area, especially content. So it's just changed every year. But I'll be honest with you, it's changed every year I've been in education. From this is my 14th year in education, and every year it's been something different, which is fine. My whole thing is I don't feel like there's one wholesale program or method. We all can share and we can get better at the same time. If I am a big believer in, if it's not working, get rid of it. If it is, keep it, and we can't be scared to just oh God, we've been doing this for 6 weeks and everybody know we don't feel if we don't feel like it's working, if we need to make a change, let's make a change, and let's transition to find ways to get better and not just keep doing the same thing, and that's what it's about. It's about professionally developing and finding ways to get better. The other thing I will say is I think administrators need to ask more questions. And why do I say that? Because, I mean, just from my experience and just, 15 years in education, administrators, that, you're not with kids every day, like, so, especially if you've been an administrator that's been out of the classroom for a long time, like if you haven't been in the classroom for a long time, like you lose. I mean, you lose kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of reality, what we do in the classroom, So like we are the professionals. I mean, teachers, we are the professionals, and I think superintendent's offices and administrators, like, I would attack my teachers and try to get as much information and generate as much conversation and collaboration as possible, as opposed to giving them information and forcing it down their throat, and
Mhm.
so I don't know. That's my take on it.
No, I definitely agree because, I'm actually working on my PhD right now in curriculum and instruction. And my big thing was, I wanted to stay teaching because it makes no sense that I would take off teaching for 4 years to get a higher degree in teaching and then turn around and tell people how to teach, and it's like, until you have this immaculate lesson plan and then 5 kids come in late, there's a fire drill, somebody has, your sped student goes off, like, until you're really in the reality of this is what happens with children, I don't really respect you. Like, if you walk in and you have presented this whole thing about professional development and you haven't been in the classroom, it's kind of hard to take you seriously because you haven't been in the reality of it. Especially now, God, last year into this year, it's like a whole new world of teaching.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, a lot of that, you guys definitely are saying some stuff that are things that I think of, and I'm in administration, and I think sometimes about the why. And I will tell you that even administrators, when going into the PLC, a lot of them ask the question, are we actually going to stick with this, or are we going to change ship? Because that changes the culture and the mindset of teachers. If, for example, if I've been here for more than 5 years and every year there's a new initiative, you're just like, this isn't, I mean, that's not good teaching in general, because why would you change your curriculum every single year? Because now you don't have a baseline data set of what's working and what's not working, if that makes sense. Like, you can't go off of anything if you don't know if the initiative, professional development you're putting in are actually holding steadfast from year to year. And I guess I think the professional development on reading, it was a different approach. I mean, that wasn't anything new that I haven't seen before. Coming from a school that was 60% Hispanic, all our initiatives were reading based, especially reading to help students that were, English as their second language. So in terms of the English, like, the adaptation of like reading skills and strategies to your classroom, how did that professional development, did it help you? Did it not help you? I just want to like hear what you guys are thinking.
Could you say that again real quick, Aaron? I spaced out that last question there real quick.
No, basically, the professional development that we did last year on reading strategies.
Yeah.
How did that help or support you, or maybe it didn't? I just want to know, like, in terms of your different subjects, because we got performing arts theater, we have PE in terms of strength and conditioning, and then we have math and algebra 2 and finite. Like, how did the reading strategies, professional development actually do anything for your pedagogy in the classroom?
I'll start off by saying this. I think all of the things that I have done in all the years I've been in education for as professional development, there's been something there that I found that has been helpful or useful to make me a better teacher, to help students. However, I just think, like you said, when we're constantly changing and we're putting too much, like we're getting away from, the teaching and the relationship side of things as well, building relationships with kids. And, but as far as the professional development, like last year, the reading thing, I really liked the reading thing. But it doesn't have to be like, I felt like we're being pushed to do these things every single day in class. And like, I just don't think we need to make wholesale changes, and it doesn't need to be done every day in class. I mean, I'm APC, we're weightlifting, like, I don't know. That's just kind of, I don't know, some things I've been thinking about.
I'll say my master's is in reading, and theater very lends itself well to reading. So if anything, it just made that, because Matt Shockley's he's all he oversees is performing arts. In terms of that, but so I think it stuck out more in my observations that we do articles and plays and things like that. But it was also like stuff I learned in grad school, so it's not, my input's probably not super helpful because like I have a degree in this, so of course I was already doing it. But I think for other teachers, especially the music people, like I had to explain to them how reading music, because in their brain it's like, well, now we got to find an article about Mozart or whatever, it's like, well, actually reading music is a form of literacy. So I had to kind of curve what the professional development was to fit for them in their minds. But I don't know really what they did in their classroom and what their feedback was. So for me, mine's the easiest one to do, reading and performing arts by far. So it worked out fine.
I really enjoyed it. And I know there were people in our department that were confused, kind of like Caitlin said, like, oh, I have to read this book or whatever. But like, I view it as mathematics is a language. And it just made me be intentional about, things about making sure everyone understood the vocabulary in the problems, and especially the word problems. Sometimes you just assume, even though it was something maybe they learned in 7th grade, that they're still okay with it. Well, they're not. And just making sure and, marking up the text and different reading strategies. But I also enjoy reading books. So, I did implement some SSR time, and that was good for breaks. And they were like, we're reading in a math class. I said, yeah, let's take 10 minutes here and read, especially with these long classes. But then again, sometimes I feel like I'm a teacher stuck in the wrong content. But, I did enjoy it. So it helped. It did help my classroom a lot. I thought it improved the culture of my classroom. It allowed me to reach more students who shut down to math usually. And if I bring some sort of reading aspect into it, then it's allowed me to connect to those students better.
No, that's great to hear. And now in terms of professional development, and when we're talking about opportunities, I know Ms. Steckbeck talked about the opportunity that the Fine Arts Department has, and they can go to different conferences and things to learn more about their content. And I know both Mr. Smith and Mr. Johnson, you both are not only teachers, but you also help with coaching in various sports and in different shapes and capacities. Like Mr. Smith, like you're a strength conditioning coach, so you help out with multiple sports. And then Mr. Johnson, I know you primarily help out with football, but you're also there in the off season in the weight room as well. Are there adequate opportunities for professional development outside of the ones provided at the school? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah. I mean, are you talking about like clinics and like strength coach clinics, football clinics? Is that kind of some areas you're?
Yeah, yep. So I'm talking about that, but then also in terms of with those professional developments, does the high school push you to actually do those things? Are they paying for them? Are those strictly on your own dime? That's what I'm asking.
For me, it's if I go to a clinic or a conference, traditionally the school has paid for it, yes. But it's not really been pushed. No, never, not one year that I've been, not that I can recall where, I've had an AD or anybody come up to me, an athletic director come up to me and say, hey, like, man, we really want you to go to this clinic, or we really want you, now I will say that Matt have encouraged me to maybe when I do go visit, like I would go visit Baloo at IU, and when I would take my visits to some schools, professional developments, because I would go visit other colleges and see what they're doing. They would encourage me to maybe go see some other sports and maybe just sit in on some other workouts that other sports are doing, just to kind of bring some more information for our other teams and other programs. But yeah, no, nothing really been pushed to get out in that area. So.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dame. Like, they don't push it, but it's kind of been, they've allowed us to take time off work. But for me personally, I mean, I've paid for everything out of my own pocket, or Coach Bless's foot the bill, head coach. But I mean, I go every year to the National O-line Clinic. I pay for that. And then we'll visit colleges. We'll pay for that. We'll pay for our Cincy Glacier trip too. So I know sometimes football will have extra money, and, sometimes they'll pay for the hotel, but we pay for the clinic fee, or sometimes some of it's paid for, but most of the time it's on our own dime. But we've never been really pushed to do it, but we've been supported to go.
All right. I would say, I think for myself, I would agree that it's not so much a push, but sometimes it's like hey, this is there, think about it. And not many times it's like, hey, you're going to this. I mean, I think there's been instances in the past year where it's been like, hey, you're going to this. But most of the time it's like, I see an email about a professional development, and I'll be like, hey, I think this is important. Or I mean, now I'll just sign up for these little free virtual Zoom meetings and take whatever I can get and just take that with me and write notes on it. Do you think that is an area of professional development for all our staff members here that's kind of inadequate, you would say? Is that administrators, me included, aren't pushing more for teachers to go do professional development?
Oh, man. I'll let somebody else go first. Let me think about that.
I got it. I mean, they like with COVID, it's been a little different. I mean, we're so short on subs. I think maybe that's part of why they haven't pushed. I know, how are they going to justify sending 20 math teachers out to the NCTM and we can't even get subs for 5 people being out? So I can't judge them on that, admin on that, until COVID clears and we can, settle back into things. But they have, I mean, early in my career, the Indiana Conference of Math Teachers, we had, 5 or 6 go every year. But lately I don't think they have had the resources to even consider that. So.
I'd kind of lost track of time, but are we again going back to, is this something that, we think that should be pushed as far as administration goes? Is that your question again, Aaron, real quick?
Yeah, no, and that's what I'm saying. And so, I mean, JJ brings up a good point. Due to COVID, like it's hard to get teachers out the building. And
Yeah,
some of these conferences have went virtual, but I mean, I think especially because these conferences have went virtual, I'm wondering why there hasn't been a bigger push now for professional development, especially because of education now. I think professional development is needed now more than ever in best practices in helping to support all the kids that we have, due to the nature of the beast of everybody's just scared. And so why
Yeah.
there hasn't been a bigger push.
well, I here's my thing. You know, I feel like professional development, we as the staff and teachers should be able to kind of, we know our teaching philosophy. We need to be able to go out to find ways to make ourselves better to help our students. And you know, I'd be like JJ, you know, our you know, JJ is our offensive line coach and offensive coordinator for the football program. And, you know, we're more of a passing, more spread, kind of spread the field out, you know, throw the ball. It would not be beneficial for him to go to a wing T football clinic, you know, and I don't know that that's any different than kind of sometimes what we do right now. Like we have the math department, we have the PE department and the social studies department all together trying to, I don't know, you know, I don't see the benefit of all three of those content areas coming together when we could take time to go and really specifically dive into our pedagogy, to dive into our teaching philosophies and figure out more ways to make us better. You know, I don't know if that makes any sense, but
Ms. Techbeck, what do you think?
I think that, I mean, so much of my conferences and stuff are like mainly in the weekends or over the summer. And like, I actually volunteer for the Indiana branch of the conferences we go to. So most of my stuff gets paid for. My registration gets paid for because I'm on the board, like running said conferences. So, I mean, for me, I'm just kind of like on my own, really. Like I've never, I like came and I chartered a thespian troupe and started doing it. So for me, it's kind of hard to say like if admin has pushed me to do my own professional development because I just did it. You know, I've been a part of this organization. I was a student. So I mean, just from my interactions with like other members of my department, I feel like everybody just kind of does their own thing and wants to be involved in other groups and organizations outside of our jobs here. So I haven't seen that like push in our department, but we also go out and do it on our own. And I don't really know what people pay or don't pay. Sometimes they get paid to be at those places. So yeah, it's a little weird in our department because we all just naturally do it. So I don't have very helpful feedback.
No, that's good. I mean, no, everything y'all saying is very helpful feedback. And this gets us to our last question, which I'm just going to combine into one. And we're just going to go around the horn. What area is professional development most beneficial? And which area is it most accurate? I mean, not accurate. Well, let me say, I said accurate. Which areas is professional development most beneficial? And in which areas is professional development inadequate?
I would say, you know, differentiation is where it's inadequate for the most part. And, you know, maybe differentiation costs more money, but if we want to have the best school possible and the best teachers possible, you've got to invest in that. You know, it's like trying to put a fire out with a garden hose. You know, you're wasting your time, and even you're paying for the garden hose. So why not just invest in bringing the fire department in or whatever? But like, I think differentiation, you know, they want us to, admin wants us to differentiate in our classroom and, you know, meet the low end students, the high end students, enrich, remediate, and do all those things. But are you willing to invest in that with professional development? That's where I would say it's inadequate, because some of these conferences can be pricey, but if if you trust your teachers and you assume that they want to be the best they can be, then it's worth it. Just like at least in my end, I assume all my students want to be successful in life. I would assume that. So I would think as an admin team from the top all the way to the lower admin, that they would assume that and want to support that.
Yeah, I just, inadequacy, again, I think, leaders ask questions, managers manage, and I feel like, sometimes we're fed information and, we don't really have, there's just not a lot of questions, a lot of those driving questions, but also just, isolating again back into the content is honestly where I think, where we're falling short, like our RP department or math and other departments I feel like don't need to be meeting together. Like we, as a department, need to sit down, figure out what works, figure out what doesn't work. And then go from there. And then, so what was the first part of it? What do we feel like is working well?
Mm-hmm.
I do feel like I feel like that some of the things that I have added into my classroom over the last 2 years there's been some things that have been beneficial. So I would not be giving due credit by just saying all negatives, but I would say that there have definitely been some things that I've added in that I never have done in the past, that I never wanted to do in the past, but I ended up doing it because it was pushed from our administration, and you know what, after doing it, I'm like, yeah, you know what, I did like that, I did learn it, and I did learn something from it, and I have taken some things from the professional development, but again, I just think it needs to be content driven, and our departments need to be able to get together and drive that. So
I think for me, it's kind of things that work well and things that aren't working well are two sides of the coin. I think what I have enjoyed most is when we have it might be going against what I had previously said, but bringing in outside people to do professional development, because I feel like in the last handful of years, it's just been like my coworkers. And I feel like after so long, we're all in the same setting with the same, general idea of Avon, Indiana kids. And I wonder how much of this is just like, for lack of a better term, just kind of like inbred information, like we're all doing the same thing. It's just a different person presenting it, or, like it just kind of starts repeating after a while. And I think it would be interesting, about, talking about differentiation, like bring in somebody who is like, not just the English teacher that does differentiation really well and they make a PowerPoint, talk about it, like somebody who is specialized in that, is like trained in that. And like, I don't know, I just, after a while, when you go to more and more and more PDs that are just taught by the same people, it just kind of, it feels a little redundant.
No, thank you guys for all being so honest and upfront about what you feel is beneficial and what's inadequate. I would say from my standpoint, being here a year and a half, I would say one of the most beneficial things that we do as a school is we're a school that is really data driven. Everything we do is based off of data, because numbers don't lie. That's just it. The numbers are not going to lie to you. They're going to tell you what you're doing right, and they're going to tell you what you're doing wrong. I think one of the things that we are inadequate about is, I think right now we are in a very weird space here at Avon High School for the fact of, I feel like we're trying to keep a status quo of what we were in the past, of being very affluent. We know students can do what they can do and everyone's involved, like all the parents are involved, and that's just not the case. And I think our professional developments have to reflect I guess, a realm of our demographic is switching. So now we have to understand that there is going to have to be a little bit more work, not because our students are bad or the parents are bad, it's just because with a demographic switch, there's going to be more supports that are needed because of socioeconomic status, because of the stuff the kids and families have to go through outside the building. And so I do think we're inadequate in that section of we're not being real with ourselves sometimes about what's really going on in our community, and that we want to still be the same old Avon High School, where this ain't the same Avon High School where I ran against them in track and the whole team looked white. This is a whole different beast. And I think once we get to that point, I think we will be.
Well, I mean,
Go
sorry
ahead.
to interrupt you, Aaron, but to touch on that, I mean, we really want a professional development. Let's send some groups down to Tech High School for a day.
Mhm.
Let's send them to Manual High School for a day. Let's see, let's see what's going on in those environments and how are they dealt with different situations and in the classroom. And that's, to me, is professional development. Like, where are we going? Where have we been and where are we going? And we are changing, we are growing, our dynamic is changing, so we have to find ways to educate and find those students, and getting out and experiencing it in different seeing it in different areas is going to be beneficial. So
No, absolutely. I think it's something that we all need to think about. And I'm so happy that you all sat down with me today to have this conversation. And I think that's one of those things I will have to bring up to, my admin team, even though I'm one of the lower admins, I just have to be real about it and just be like, hey, I think us doing this PLC work is great right now, but I think we have to go to a Wayne Township or a Pike or a Warren or an IPS.
yeah.
So we can see, like, how does your PLC impact the most at-risk kids? And I think that's important moving forward in terms of professional development, because I would not say we're super affluent. I would say at this point, we are very middle class in terms of socioeconomic status. But it is 8:13. We have been on this call for quite some time, but we got a lot of great stuff put out there. So I really appreciate y'all. Go out there and teach them up today. Best of luck to Coach JJ and the Avon Oriole football team in their first round. This technically is the second round of sectional. So best of luck. And I hope you all have a great weekend. I want to thank you all so much for helping me out with this.
Appreciate you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Yeah.
See ya.
You're welcome.
Peace out.
Bye.
Peace.